Hi guys, hope everyone's having a nice Thanksgiving break. Welcome to Demo 7. Today we'll be talking about authentication. So this demo video isn't required, but it's going to be super helpful for you if you want to know about authentication. Also, if you implement this in the hack challenge, you may win a category, which can give you a nice virtual prize. So hope you stick with this video. Alright, so I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of what to expect in this demo video. So here we have a hello world endpoint. If I run that, it works. Alright, so how this is going to go is authentication works when the backend on register of a user gives the client what's called a session token. This session token is used to verify the client. So every time they make a request now after they've registered themselves as a user and they've logged in, the backend will know, okay, this is the user I've recognized, I already authenticated them before, so I can give them out private information like, I don't know, if this was like an Instagram app, I can show them all the bookmarks they've made or all the likes and posts that they've made. Otherwise, this isn't a user I've authenticated, so I shouldn't be sending them this information. Alright, and I will go more into depth about updating a session and logging in and all that. So let's first try registering. So here, I have a register endpoint. It's a post request. As you can see, I have a collection here, and as you know me, I like to organize all my endpoints. I highly recommend that you guys do this. It'll be really helpful because you will have a bunch of endpoints and you gotta keep track of them. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is go to body, and then this looks like it's kind of buggy. So body, raw, JSON, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to be sending in an email, so let's just do my Gmail account. Please don't email me. And then my password, I'll just say, I like anime. Oh god. Okay, so if I do post here, you can see that I have all of my stuff, and if I click on JSON, this nicely formats this. So what we're going to return is a session token, session expiration date, and the update token. Session token is what you're going to be using and pass in the header to verify that you are a person that's been authenticated. Session expiration date is this date by which you must update your token. Otherwise, this token is going to expire. So you use this to generate a new token. And the reason being is that if a hacker gets his hands on your session token, which is actually highly likely because every time you make a request to the backend, you're including this session token in your header, and it's quite easy to intercept that if you're not careful. And at some point, if someone does have their hands on your session token, you want to be able to just kick them out. So that's when you update your session token. All right. So if I go to secret, I can verify that I've correctly implemented this. So I should be able to copy my session token here, go into secret, and if I go to headers, so because I've already done this before, I'm gonna pretend I didn't. So I'm gonna type authorization here, and then bearer, and then paste in my token. And then once I click send, this should say I've successfully implemented session. So if I do something like blah, that should say invalid token. So this is how the client knows that they've done something right. Something that I want to show you guys that's unique to Postman that will be really helpful for you is what you can do is create a global variable, and then you can call this token, and then you can paste the actual token value, and then if you click save and then you do this, you should be able to type token, and then if you send that again, bam, that works. So if you make any future requests, you don't have to copy and paste that anymore. You can just do parentheses, parentheses, token, closing, closing parentheses. And that's super handy and very annoying otherwise if you had to copy that all the time. Okay, now that we have verified this works, let's actually do it when we log in. So this is the login endpoint. What I'm going to do is go to body. Here I've done this example before, but I'm just going to do my I like anime example, and this is my Gmail account. So remember, this is a post request, body, raw, JSON. If I click send there, and I do JSON, I get what I expect. The session token, the date at which my session token expires, and the update token. So this means I have successfully logged in. So anytime I want to make a request to the backend, my token will work. Great. So now let's see how we can update the token. So here I go to session. So I'm at body. Actually, even though this is a post request, we're not going to be sending any post body. And the reason why we do a post request is we are technically doing something to the backend. We're not getting information back. So that's why we're doing a post request, even though we're not sending anything in the post body. But we are sending something in the header. So this is header. Maybe I went by that too fast, but again, we can use that token that we used earlier. We click send. And this is saying this is invalid update token, and that's because we use a session token and not the update token. So if you go back here to register, we can copy this update token, go back to session to update this token. If I paste it here, this should work. So this is the correct update token. So this is what this is used for, and this gives us a new session token. So let's copy that, and let's go to our environment. And let's update this so that if we do make future requests, this will be updated. So if I do token, sorry, this is a bit buggy. Okay, so I think my Postman's a bit buggy, but you guys can definitely use this. But because this is just a demo and we're not going to be actually making any other requests to the backend besides authorization endpoints, it's not necessary that I have these in global variables, but only because my Postman is buggy. You guys should be able to do that. Alright, so now that I've showed you guys what to expect, let's actually go ahead and code this. Alright, so let me close my server. Okay. Alright, so let me show you guys where I'm at. So I am here where the starter code is. You guys will also be getting this. You can download this on our course website. But here I have our starter code. You're going to be getting many things, but first of all, let's create our virtual environment as usual. All right, and then let's install requirements.txt. So let's activate and then pip install requirements.txt. Great, so now that I'm in my virtual environment and I have all my code, let's open this up. So this is VS Code. So what we'll be giving you guys is an already filled out user implementation, user model implementation. And this is really great because, I mean, the code's already written out for you, so the only thing you need to worry about are the routes. I'll briefly go over this so that you guys know what code you'll be using. So here we have a user. Our table name is user, and we have an ID, email, and password digest. So what this is happening is we're going to save the user's email, the password that they'll be using to authenticate themselves. And for the three things that we need, we have them in our user. And then whenever we create a user, we have to save their email based on what they gave us. Then we're going to hash their password. So the idea with this is that we never, ever want to store passwords raw. We always want to hash them because if our database gets compromised, we don't want to leak all of our customers' passwords, right? So here we're hashing it. We're encoding it into this string format, and then we're generating a salt. So a salt is just kind of like a unique identifier. And that's how we're going to hash our password. You don't need to worry too much about this, but just know that we have to keep our password safe. And basically, we have all of these other methods that we're going to use in our DAO file and our app.py file. So here we have renewing our session. So we get our session token, we know our expiration date, and we update that. And then for verifying the password, this is using the password that you hashed before. And when you verify all of this, this is kind of self-explanatory. All right, so let's get into this. I know I mentioned that we have a DAO file. We didn't go over a DAO file, data access object file, in this semester of the course because in previous semesters we thought it was a bit too much information overload, but it's basically a set of methods that we use to abstract away from what we're doing so that we can directly call these methods easily and things are encapsulated nicely from us. So let's first run this. So let's go to terminal because we have a hello world endpoint in our app.py. So we go to terminal, new terminal. So we have our, I think, let's make sure that this is activated. Alright, so if you run python app.py, our server should be running. And if we pull up Postman back here, we should be able to go to this hello world endpoint, and that works. Great, so that works. So let's start by allowing users or clients to register accounts. So here we're going to go to app.py and let's implement register account. Actually, before we do that, let's go to users.py and let's work on creating a user. All right. So how we're going to create a user is we have an email and password. Just get situated here. So first we're going to create some user. Get user by email, but before we do that, we want to see if this user already exists. And that's why we're calling it optional user, because we are not sure whether or not it exists. Optional is a data type, by the way. It could be none or something, none or int, none or string. So we're going to check if optional user is not none. So if we already have a user registered, then we want to return false, meaning we didn't successfully create a user, but here you go. This is the user that you were expecting. Otherwise, let's create a user. So we call our user create class. We pass in the email, we pass in the password, and then we're going to add this user to our database. So like you guys have been doing, and then we're going to commit it. And then we're going to return true, saying that, okay, we successfully created this user and give them that user. All right, so now that we've created a user, so let me just make sure that this is like 3.7. Okay. And then if I go to app.py, we can work on registering a user. So let's first parse the JSON body. Let's also parse the email. And then we get the password as well. Okay, so if the email wasn't sent in or the password, we can't register their account. So if email is none or password is none, we're going to return JSON dumps error invalid email or password. So we've been doing success response and failure response in class. I didn't do that here, but it doesn't matter. You guys can still use those methods, but this is basically what's happening. Return an error if they don't have an email or password. Otherwise, we say that we've successfully was created users DAO. So that's from our users DAO file. We're going to create that user. So use that method that we just implemented, pass in the email and password that we were given from the client. And if not was created, so if the user wasn't successfully created, we're going to return JSON dumps error user already exists. So remember, return false if that user was already found. Otherwise, we return JSON dumps session token and the user session. So remember how we just gave you guys that db.py? In the create user, we create that user. So now we can just retrieve the session token that was created by db.py. And then we're going to have a session expiration. We're going to cast this to a string because we're using a date object. Expiration. And then we're going to pass in the update token. So this is user update token. This should be good to go. So now that we have register, let's test our endpoint. So let me get Postman here. So if I go to register and let's say I do in my other email, I don't know, helloworld@gmail.com instead of I like anime. HXH is a great anime. Okay, so highly recommend you guys watch that. Let's do a post. Alright, it says request is not defined. I think this might have to do with our imports. So let's make sure we import everything. So let's go to from Flask import request. And then we also have to import users. Down. Okay. Now let's try that again. DB is not defined. Oops. Okay, I forgot to import DB. I think that might be in users DAO. So if I go to DB here, we have to say from DB import DB. Okay. And then let's make the request again. Great, so this works. We have session token, expiration date, update token. Okay, now let's move on to implementing extract token. We need to do this in app.py and we need to have extract token because remember, the client's going to be sending us a token in the header. And we need to be able to parse that token and sort of verify that this is a user that we want. So let's go to extract token. Alright, so let's get the auth header. And the way that you do that is you go to requests, and in the headers, we get by the key authorization. Remember, we typed in authorization. So if auth header is none, then that means they didn't send us a token. So we're going to return false, JSON, dumps, error, missing authorization header. Otherwise, oops. We're gonna say, let's get our bearer token from parsing our auth header. We're gonna replace bearer with an empty string. So the reason why we even include bearer is because you can have different types of tokens. It doesn't have to be a bearer token. You guys can search that up more in detail if you're interested, but this is kind of also by convention. And remember how I showed you guys when we want to send things in, we do authorization and bearer. What we're doing is just stripping this off so we can just get the token. Okay. So now that we've gotten the bearer token, so if the bearer token is actually something, so we want to check if it's not a valid bearer token, we return false and JSON dumps error invalid authorization header. Otherwise, our token is all well and we can return true. That means we're successful and actually return the bearer token. Okay, so now that we've implemented extract token, let's implement the verifying part. So this is the /secret endpoint. So let's go to secret message. Let me zoom in so this is better to see for you guys. And actually before we do that, again, we need to implement some methods in our users DAO.py. So let's go here. And what we need to do is implement get user by session token, and get user by update token. So this is already implemented for you guys, so we don't need to do that, but this is the same thing as what we've been doing using SQL Alchemy. So let's move on to verifying credentials. All right, so let's use the optional user guy again. So let's try to get this user by email. So if this user does not exist, then we're going to return false because we're not able to verify credentials of user that doesn't exist. Otherwise, we're going to return optional user, verify password, optional user. So if you guys notice in the login endpoint, let me show you guys. You should be able to send in your password along with your session token. So that's why we're also needing to verify the password. So let's go to verify password. Oh yeah, so we already implemented here. In the db.py, we already have verified password. So that is amazing. You guys are very welcome for using this already implemented user model. But even though we gave you guys this, feel free to make customizations. You can do a different type of hashing for your passwords. Everything's up to you. Okay, now that we have this, let us go and see if we can implement secret message. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's extract our token request. And if we scroll up, we can see that extract token returns a boolean and the actual bearer token. So let's account for that. So let's say whether or not was successful and a session token. Okay, if not was successful, we're going to return the session token. Otherwise, we're going to actually get the user and try and see if we can verify their password. If not user or not user, verify session token. So if we're not able to verify them, then we're going to return JSON dumps error invalid session token. So, and then otherwise we're gonna say, okay, you've successfully implemented sessions. Yeah, so now that we've done this, let's see if we can try it in Postman. So if we go to secret and we send, name requests is not defined. So I'm guessing, let me see. I think, okay, so app.py we have requests. Huh, was it not request? Oh, I think it's just request. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so this is just request because we're using the request library, duh. Okay, so if I click send on Postman, this is saying it's an invalid session token, and that's because, remember, I wasn't able to update my global variable because it expired, but we can grab this and test it here. Okay, send. And we have successfully implemented sessions, so that's great news. Now, let's move on to logging people in. So before we do that, we have to go to users DAO and see that we've implemented verify credentials, and we have. So let's go to app.py, log in. Okay, so let's parse the body. Oh dear, okay. Okay, and then let's extract the email from the body. Okay, so if email's not none or password is, so if email is none or password is none, we're gonna copy this here. We're just gonna return an error response. Otherwise, we're gonna see if it was successful in actually extracting the token. And that's encoded into verify credentials. So if not was successful, return JSON dumps error incorrect email or password. Otherwise, we're going to return success. So we've already done this before. Let's just copy this. I probably have a typo somewhere, but we'll figure it out. All right, so now that we've done login, let's test that in Postman. Login, I'm not sure if this will work actually, but if I send incorrect email password, okay, let's go to register. So this was helloworld@gmail.com, and HXH is a great anime. I don't know if anime is plural or not. Okay. Okay. Hello World is a great anime. Okay. Great. So this works. I have my session token, session expiration, and update token. Now, let's implement updating a session. So how we do that is we're going to go to users DAO, and we're going to renew session. So let's implement this. Okay, let's get our user that we want to update the session for. And it says here, get user by session token. Remember, we've given you this function in your starter code. So we're going to update the token if user is none. So if we didn't actually have a valid user, we're going to raise an exception. Invalid update token. The reason why we have to raise exception is because we are at a layer called the data access object layer. So this is an abstraction, this file, this user's DAO.py. We can't return a failure or success response because that's what app.py does. Here, we're only allowed to respond with like user objects and true false stuff, but it doesn't quite make sense to return a JSON response because that's not the layer that we're in. Which is why we're going to raise an exception here, and in app.py we're going to catch it and return a failure response if necessary. So because we've implemented this in db.py, we're just going to call renew session, and we're going to commit the session. We're going to return user. All right, so now that we have something that helps us renew the session, let's go to app.py and implement update session. Okay, so if I go to update session, let me just move this down a bit. Okay, update session, here we go. So let's check if we were successful by extracting the token. Except this time, remember, when we update the token that we're getting is the update token, not the actual token that we want to update. Okay, so if this was not successful, then we just want to return the update token, basically just feed them back their mistake. Like try again. Okay, and now we're going to catch the exception that we threw. So try users DAO renew session. So use that method that we just made. Accept exception as E, return JSON dumps error. What we can do is do an F string. So this is invalid update token, STRE exception. So this is just something fancy. It basically allows you to insert variables into your string in these curly braces. If you add an F in front of it, you do need at least Python 3.6 to use this. If you have been successfully running our test cases, we do use F string. So if you can do that, then you're fine. But yeah, this is just a nice error message. Otherwise, we want to return our session token, session expiration, and all that. Okay. Great. So let's see that updating our session works. So let's go here. And if we go to session, I believe we need to get our update token from here. Paste this in. Oops. Okay, I think Postman is just very buggy today. Alright, hang in there, guys. I'm gonna restart Postman. Okay. KK. Let's go to headers. I think I still have it to my clipboard, so I'll just paste that. And body, I don't think we send in a body, remember, because all we're doing is updating the token and getting that new token, because that update token, basically, our backend knows. If you send us this update token, we know this is you. You're the one with this token, so we'll update it for you. If we send it, it works. So I think zooming in was why Postman was kind of whack, but you guys can see this is completely fine. All right, so we have successfully done authentication. So hopefully this is educational to you guys. I just want to stress that including authentication is optional in your project, and we recommend that you implement authentication after you're done implementing everything in your app. This is because it can be quite annoying to, when you're testing, always adding like this authentication stuff. But in some ways it could be good, right? Like if you use the environment, the global variables trick that I showed you in Postman, it could be very easy. So you can alternatively use OAuth. So that's like having the clients deal with Google sign in or Facebook sign in and all that. You can also implement that on the back end. So doing any of those is going to be super helpful for your backend career. And yeah, wish you the best of luck and see you in the next demo for images. Bye guys.